Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the 18th episode of Rowen Reports with Dr. Robert J. Rowen. Today, we welcome the former rodeo star and health expert Carl Buzz Thompson to the show. Let us know what you think in the comments of this video, and if you'd like to support this podcast, please visit our generous sponsors by following the links in the description below. Don't forget to use the promo codes for discounts on every order. Now, I would like to leave you with some words by Plato. Rhythm and harmony find their way into the inward places of the soul. Before we jump in, we would like to give a special thank you to our sponsor at PROMOLIFE, bringing you closer to the benefits of ozone therapy. Proudly rooted in the USA, PROMOLIFE is at the forefront of assembling ozone therapy generators designed for both personal and professional use right here on American soil. Meticulously handcrafted and precision calibrated, each ozone generator speaks quality and reliability. PROMOLIFE has simplified the ozone therapy process by offering a complete line of high-quality accessories that allow you to use ozone in ways you never thought possible. Don't miss out and explore their entire collection of cutting-edge offerings at www.promolife.com/ozone. Make sure you use the coupon code in the description of this podcast for an exclusive discount towards your journey to enhanced well-being. I am also excited that our friends at shopc60.com are helping to sponsor this video. If you haven't heard of C60 before, also known as Carbon 60, it is a powerful antioxidant that helps to optimize mitochondrial function, fight inflammation, and neutralize toxic free radicals. I'm a big fan of using C60 in conjunction with a keto or intermittent fasting lifestyle to support the immune system, help your body detox, and increase energy and mental clarity. If you are over the age of 40 and you'd like to kick fatigue and brain fog to the curb this year, visit shopc60.com and use the coupon code in the description for 10% off your first order and take control over your health today. This episode is also brought to you by Simply O3. We are proud to introduce our latest innovation, Glycine, a premium ozonized glycerin designed to support your wellness journey. Ozone therapy has been transforming health for over 100 years, backed by more than 2,500 medical studies. Known for boosting immune function, improving blood flow, and reducing fatigue, it is a powerhouse for your health routine. Ready to experience Glycine for yourself? Visit www.simplyo3.com/ozone. If it's back ordered, just leave them with your email, and you'll be the first to know when the next batch is ready. Don't miss out and discover the benefits of Glycine to take the step towards better health today. And remember, your health is an investment, not an expense. With Simply O3 and the revolutionary product, Glycine, you're choosing quality, innovation, and care. Visit www.simplyo3.com/ozone to make Glycine a part of your wellness routine today. Last but certainly not least, this episode is brought to you by NORDIC Health Solutions. Founded in Annapolis, Maryland in 2009, NORDIC Health Solutions is a leading biological medicine company offering a diverse range of healing modalities. Their devices provide the body with energy and tools needed for healing, repair, and disease prevention through pulse electromagnetic frequencies, light, temperature, and gases. Nordic Health Solutions devices excel in both energy medicine and light medicine, aka photobiomodulation. Their red light bed offers an unmatched power and frequencies at half the price of the competitors, and their Hercules Smart Thermal Laser is exceptional for pain management. Their motto is to outpower and undercut the cost of the competition. Finally, ozone therapy, including home ozone generators and the renowned Zotzman Ozone Hyperbaric High Dose 2000 for clinical use, delivers impressive results. Physicians can attend quarterly ozone training workshops in Santa Rosa, California with Dr. Rowen and Dr. Sue. Learn more about Nordic Health Solutions and their mission at www.nordichealthsolution.com.
Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, whenever you see this. This is another episode of Rowen Reports, and today I have a special guest. He goes by Buzz. His name is Carl Thompson, and he goes by Buzz. And my experience with Buzz is he is the one who provided our office with some really wonderful air purification devices. I love them. Our office loves them. We used them during COVID, and we do not know of a single transmission of COVID in our office during that time. In fact, of any disease. His device we like because it doesn't smell like ozone. There are ozone devices, and I like them, but you have to be careful. It can put out too much ozone and irritate you. His doesn't, and that's how we came to know each other. And then after he talks about that, I'm going to query him on some other devices that he makes. One like this. This is a wristband, and it's to protect you. He's got a company called Life Armor, and I'm going to query him on that as well. So, Buzz, welcome to the Rowen Report. Thanks for being here, and tell us about the air purifier, because it's critical now with Southern California.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rowen. I appreciate all you do and have done in blessing a lot of folks for a long time. So thank you for being a pioneer in the space that you're in. My name is Buzz Thompson, Carl Buzz Thompson. I go by Buzz most of the time. I'm passionate about lightening our environmental toxic burden. I've been involved in regenerative and anti-aging medicine for quite a long time. And all roads kind of led back to, it didn't matter how many steps we were taking forward in anti-aging and regenerative medicine, we were sliding more steps back because of the bioaccumulation of environmental toxicants and toxins, that we were accumulating. And so it seemed imperative to find ways to lighten that burden if we were going to contribute to longevity. And so that same burden, and it's usually this invisible army of things. If you see a bear coming at you, it's easy to run. It's the invisible stuff that gets us. And so I became very proactive after Father passed away with cancer. And I realized, I said, I just inherently felt like he was toxic and his body wasn't doing anything to get better. And there continued to be an accumulation of things. It was toxin on top of toxin on top of toxin. And I thought, how is this ever going to lead to a favorable result? And so over time and through the years, I continued this passion in this space. And it led me to realizing that we needed to lighten the toxic burden from the air, from our water, from the food that we eat. Pretty much our body is the filter for our environment. And there's so much adverse stuff. It's like we have this massive bioaccumulation of stuff that's just kind of waiting to be activated by something. And it appears that activation has to do with stress and stressors. So, but with regard to the air technology specifically, that led me in sort of my evolution was investigating technologies that would lighten our toxic burden. I'm thinking originally dust, mold, that kind of stuff. And then that led me to realizing that there was more breakthrough technology that existed than typical filtration. Most people are thinking a filter, and in the paradigm, I'll call it the old paradigm, you needed a device that would suck all of the air and all of the particulate that we were primarily concerned with into some type of a filtration device. And that meant that you had to have a pretty strong, loud motor to be able to suck all of that stuff in and then trap it. And then it became a question of how effective is that trapping mechanism. And then I was made aware of, okay, so we're only really cleaning what can go through that device, and we're sort of sucking everything to us en route to that. And so it's loud, and it also begs that you got a closed space, those types of filtration. So my kind of this thing, I like your filter sucks. I mean, it literally does. It sucks, and it's loud, and that can be challenging. So contrast that to the new paradigm that I have been working with for years, which was let's work like nature. We were designed to thrive in nature, and so there's technology that allows a device to emit pulsed negative ions, and negative ions are anti-aging, antioxidant. Your stress reduces. We feel amazing when we're out at we take a vacation, we're out in nature. It's because of this abundance of negative ions that exist in nature that do not exist in our indoor environments. I actually use an ORP meter. It stands for oxidation reduction potential, the potential to reduce oxidation or contribute to oxidation. And in my view of aging, we're either aging and oxidizing faster or aging and oxidizing slower. Simple as that. And so I want to do everything I can to contribute to anti-aging, anti-oxidation. I thought, wow, if we could do this with this air technology, in addition to to the filtration, to lightening the toxic burden on the body, that would be awesome. So we ended up developing systems that would use an abundance of negative ions and work like nature to repel particulate out of our breathing space, instead of trying to suck it into our breathing space and trap it in the filter. And we found that we could cover a much larger space with a strong field of negative ions. And this technology has been around for a long time. But if you go out in nature, you look around the forest or the ocean, you don't see any dust. And that's because nature has an abundance of negative ions that bond with positively charged particulate and drop it out of your breathing space very quickly. So I'm very big on, let's get back to nature. We were designed to thrive in nature. So I thought, wow, if we could make our indoor environment a thriving environment like outdoors in nature and lighten our toxic burden, well, that'd be a home run. So we started developing systems that would allow us to do that, and that's been accomplished over the years. Then it became apparent that, well, there's an additional invisible army of stuff, not just particulate, and that's things like mold, mycotoxin, things that ride on that are maybe chemical based, maybe things that are VOCs. Also,
for the viewer, a VOC, volatile organic compound. These are small molecules like petroleum that you can smell, and they're going to go through any filter. They can't be filtered out. Small molecules, and they're toxic. Continue, Buzz.
Yeah, and so we ended up developing technology that was an evolution of one that was developed in some NASA research, and it ended up being so effective for VOCs. Now, mycotoxin, which is it's a VOC, so mold emits a mycotoxin. A lot of people think it's the mold spores. Well, that mold that rides on dust, and there's all kinds of ways to deal with that. But one of the curious things that happens where people get really effective is when the mold is emitting the mycotoxin. And an interesting thing about that is when mold perceives that it's under attack from EMF, the mold is very sensitive to EMF. And when you have mold and EMF, you got a 10 times worth challenge, because the mold, even if it's behind the walls, perceives that it's under attack from the EMF fields, and it starts spewing out this self-defensive mycotoxin, this neurotoxin, in self-defense. And so that's something that we became aware of, just being very out on the forefront of challenges. Yes, sir.
If I hold my hand up, it means I got a question. Thank you. So this is new to me. You're telling me that when mold, and obviously you don't have to see mold. Mold could be in your roof, it could be your rug, it could be in your walls. You're telling me when mold is exposed to EMF, which comes through us from cell towers, even Wi-Fi, it responds aggressively.
Just like a skunk that feels it's under attack.
I'm going to ask you to get me some research on that if it's available, because I want to put that out. I want to let people know about that. So, sometime in the next couple of weeks, pass it on. Please continue.
Yeah, my very best friend, this was the friend that was going to live to be 120, did all his research on everything, lived in Southern California. They built a cell tower, 100 feet outside his front door.
Oh, God,
and
no.
he literally aged 10 years every year. And I just saw him go down, 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 down. He passed away last year. And I couldn't figure out, I sent specialists from UCLA that were EMF mitigation specialist. And I sometimes when somebody's so close to you, they don't pay attention. And after the specialist did all the readings, they said, we need to go down to the beach. I don't even want to be here to give you the results. And he says, I bet you don't have any bugs in your home. And he said, no, he's an Aussie buddy of mine. He goes, oh no, mate, I don't have any bugs. I don't even have flies. I don't have ants. And he said, and he ended up, the specialist said, it's because they can't survive in this harsh of an electromagnetic radiation environment. And he says, you have to leave. And so, but he was so stuck. He was just like an albatross. All of his stuff held him down, right? Sometimes we have to just cut and get out of that environment. Guys, it's the invisible stuff that gets us. And that's what I focus on. So things like germs, virus, bacteria, mold, mycotoxin, this type of stuff. It's the invisible stuff. And the EMF is the next invisible thing that we're just not paying attention to because we don't see it. Our body stays in chronic fight or flight, sympathetic response to this environmental stressor that we don't see. Anyway, my friend, once he passed away, his family went into the home and they lifted up. But I couldn't figure out why he was deteriorating so fast, because all I saw was the EMF, and we did things to try to mitigate that a bit. He ended up getting so sick and losing his mind that, they take all of our tech off him every time he'd go to the hospital, and it was just a losing battle. But when they lifted up his mattress, they found underneath his mattress, it was caked with mold. And then when they lifted up the box spring, which was on the floor, all of this mold was under there also. So he has the cell tower blasting the mold, which is releasing this neurotoxin, which led to his neurodegenerative condition so rapidly. And
holy crap. Listen.
And I lost my best friend to that.
I'm really sorry to hear that. Again, get me this information because I have to write a piece in my Substack about this podcast. And I really want to feature that because a lot of people, everybody knows about mold, everybody knows about EMF, but they don't know about this connection. And I want to give them something that they can put their teeth into. Continue, please.
Well, thank you. So having this knowledge of this, once you start studying the invisible stuff, I started to realize, so we create this air technology that became, I'll go back before COVID. We'll go to the Porter Ranch natural gas leak. That is in Southern California. I don't know if you recall that. I was at an event with Aaron Brockovich, and this was a really big deal. Natural gas spewing out all into the Southern California basin. They had to evacuate thousands of homes. Turned out that this technology that we have inside these air machines was the most effective because filters weren't effective. It was the most effective at reducing the VOC, the toxic chemical, the gas, the vapor, from the environment. In fact, they ended up purchasing 4,000 units from the company I was working with and literally gave them for free to the residents of that Porter Ranch area.
Oh, wow. How nice. Now,
that was based upon their research.
For the VOCs, a filter isn't going to get them, and negative ions isn't going to get them either.
That's
so
correct.
What is your filter putting out? What is your machine putting out that is getting the VOCs?
Great question. So there was technology, this technology that I referenced earlier that was developed associated with NASA is a very unique technology that turns humidity into hydrogen peroxide molecules, or hydrogen peroxides, peroxyls they're actually referred to. And these travel through what's referred to as the law of gases. So it's not dependent upon a fan blowing them. It's like if somebody made microwave popcorn in an office space, it just permeates everything.
Exactly.
Okay, and that's referred to as the law of gases. So these hydrogen peroxide molecules, which are odorless, colorless, and tasteless, and are a form of hydrogen peroxide, which our body uses that very favorably, was the breakthrough versus ozone systems. And ozone was a way to put something into the environment that could be effective against molds and viruses and bacteria and things like that. But there was a potential contraindication that could be associated with that. And you could set off an asthmatic. It had to be set just right. And I didn't trust just general consumers to that. So for years, I had nothing to do with O3 in the air, even though my big things are ozone, exosomes, and bioenergetics. It's just, you're my hero. Okay? And so, but not so much on the lungs, right? So we have to figure a way, how can we solve the problem without contributing to another problem? And this technology, this hydrogen peroxide and nature-based negative ion technology seem to do that. So we ended up building this technology to include, this is an evolution. So these devices, they started with negative ions and ozone. We got rid of the ozone. We had the hydrogen peroxide molecules. Now we have HEPA filtration, activated carbon. I was able to develop what I call my zombie apocalypse machine. This was the device that I wanted for my family. I had been involved in developing these for other corporations that sold millions of them during COVID, because what you essentially have is occupied space infection control. This is something that's safe to breathe that would, because of the effectiveness of these hydrogen peroxide molecules, will disinfect air and sanitize surfaces over 4,000 square feet, pretty large footprint. And it's not dependent on having a large, loud motor that's going to suck everything in. Filters don't kill germs out on your doorknobs, your countertops, your toilet seats, because the problem was, we needed a better solution to the paradigm we were dealing with, which is we got germs all over the place. How do we proactively address these things out in space, not just try to kill germs in a machine? And there's a lot of sales science, which I detest. We're real people in a real world. We need real solutions, not something that works in a petri dish or in an extreme controlled situation, right? This is about our loved ones that we're talking about. And so I quickly recognized that the products that were on the market at the time, even the ones that I helped develop, were not effective in a mission critical environment like we were dealing with COVID. And so during that time, I had an opportunity. I was approached by someone who said, "Hey, you're pretty much the foremost expert in this space. Would you help me develop a device, a machine?" And he didn't know anything about these. And I was given the opportunity to basically construct my ideal indoor environmental protective system. And so it has the hydrogen peroxide molecules. It has activated oxygen. It has HEPA filtration, washable, so you don't have to keep buying these filters all the time. It's a commercial grade application. I wanted this thing to last and last and last. There were other forms of this technology. If you see this little blue light, and I have a blown up one, a poster behind me of it. But that's kind of what the inside of this device looks like. Well, these are driven. The catalyst is a UVC germicidal disinfectant lamp. And we're not using that lamp to kill germs. We're using that lamp as a catalyst to generate these hydrogen peroxide molecules. And so all the other technologies, even the ones I was involved with, they were selling these things like crazy. Like I said, 5 million of them during COVID. But what I came to learn is that they went cheap on the lamps. They were using these 1 year UVC lamps because I don't know why, but when I went to develop the one for my own family's protection, we went with a 3-year lamp. And what a lot of people don't realize who had purchased these devices in the past is that after about a year, you just have a lamp, you just have a nightlight and a fan. It's lost its effectiveness because it needs the strength of the lamp, which diminishes over time. So it's real important to keep these types of devices serviced and maintained. The one that we developed is a 3-year commercial grade application. And so, the idea with regard to particulates in the air was, I kind of liken it like this. You could build a little sticky pad and try to trap the mosquitoes to it, which in my opinion is like all the dust and particulate, try to suck it in and trap it in something. Or you could use the concept of something like citronella and just repel everything out of your breathing space. And that's what I prefer to do. So that's what our technology does. It's literally repelling dust and particulate bound stuff and stuff that rides on dust, things like mold that rides on dust. We are literally repelling that out of our breathing space, dropping it to the ground, repelling it outside pretty much the perimeter of our home because the technology is that powerful. So now we've got the best of the best of the best into this commercial grade application. Really happy about that for protected from germs, virus, bacteria, those kinds of things. I mean, we had a school at the Journey School in Southern California. One of our friends, Dr. Angela Goldstein, she's a naturopathic doc. It's an interesting story. She said, I didn't know she was doing this, but she would call me and ask about how do we service the device. And she said, well, my son's going into kindergarten and first grade and second grade. Well, she told the school that her son had an allergy or some type of a breathing condition, and he needed this device in his classroom. Well, she sees lots of stuff, and so she knows what goes around schools. So she puts it in his class. Well, then the next year, she asks how to service it. I teach her how to service it, and she puts it in the next. And then finally, I get a couple of years later, I get a phone call, and this guy says he is the president of the Journey School at San Juan Capistrano, California. So he asked if I could help. He says, I have a battle royale in my teacher's lounge. Everybody's wanting to know who's going to get Jonathan Goldstein in their class next year. Because his breathing apparatus went class to class, and apparently that year there was a version of this, it's the human version of hoof-to-mouth disease. I can't think of what it's called right now, but it just runs rampant through the schools with all the kids. His class was the only one that didn't get sick, and that's why they were all lobbying. That year, the whole school ended up buying units for all of the classes, and he said that was just such a huge difference. So the beautiful thing about this technology is there's no behavior modification to upregulate health and prevent people from getting sick. Somebody walked out there when the COVID thing was of concern. We kept mission critical, I call mission critical churches, places where they give people hope, open, because now they could put these devices all over the place. And if somebody sneezed, well, the molecules in the air are disinfecting the issue on your shoulder, on your hair, wherever, So it gave people peace of mind, protection, and we were very proud about that. Well, something happened during that COVID period, and I'm just going to say it was just divine intervention. And a company that I had been working with in developing these technologies, I'll just say I had a conflict of conscience in a direction that they went. And so I had to separate myself from that company. It was very costly and very hurtful. But that's how we had met. We're through older forms of the technology that had worked with companies to develop. During this, sometimes when one door closes, another door opens, and I believe that everything happens for a reason. And so people said, well, what are you involved with? What are you doing? Well, I was working on developing what I call the zombie apocalypse machine. We didn't know what was coming next, right? But I wanted to be prepared for it, whatever it was, whether it was shedding. A lot of people don't realize things that we put into our bodies are emitted through our skin. We lose about 500,000 dead skin cells a day. That stuff ends up in the air. We breathe it. If somebody put something into their body that I didn't want to get, no way, no how, because I chose not to put it in my body, we could breathe that stuff and we would accumulate those things. And what you breathe ends up in your bloodstream in about 5 minutes. So it needed to be very strong, very effective against all kinds of things that I didn't want to get, or my family to get, or my loved ones to get. And so very happy with the development that we had. And then something else became very apparent during this time. I don't know if you remember, but during that time, the COVID time, cell towers were going up galore, like these 5G towers, just everywhere, right? And so I'm dealing with my friend at this time who's losing, and I'm seeing this big cell tower, and that became the forefront in my mind, is how can I save my friend from this big thing that's 100 yards, not even 100 yards outside his front door. And so I thought, well, I'm dealing with this environment, this invisible army of stuff that's breaking us down, making us sick, shortening our lifespans. That's what EMF is. That's what this burden of electromagnetic radiation is. And so I thought, well, how come my one thing that we're making right now can't do everything? It's a box. I got extra space in there. What can we do to help remediate EMFs? And so I started studying EMF blockers primarily, what's out there and what can block. And so what I found during this research was encouraging, and then it was extremely disappointing. And what I found was that, again, I'm going to go back to what I'll call sales science, which was a lot of things where I could take a tri-field meter and I could show the burden. You hold your cell phone up right then. I show the burden of this thing going off like crazy, and then I would put an application on it, and the meter, the reading would reduce dramatically. And I thought, well, I'll just, whatever that stuff is, I'll put it in the machine. Well, what I later come to realize is that's testing device's ability to block a waveform. But what really mattered is the body. What I learned is that we're being hit by so many things from so many directions that trying to work with blockers is like putting a paper plate over your head and walking out in a thunderstorm. Yeah. You're going to get it from all different directions, from different things, not just that one thing that one thing is trying to block. And so I recognized that blockers and some of these things, these whole house solutions, and I actually bought one. I spent $7,000 on whole home EMF protection for my home, thinking that was what I needed to do, only to realize that it was spotty at best. And that what really mattered was, how does my body respond to a challenging environment? So what we're really talking about is health and how the body responds to our environment. And so right about this time, and I'll just call it divine intervention, I became in contact with a technology that was a waveform technology. And since I was free at the time, they said, hey, they were looking for somebody to be the president of the company. And they said, we know you have this background and we think you could be the guy. And I said, well, I think that I don't get what you guys are talking about. It seems, fairy dust weird to me. I'm in the real science space and I don't get this, genetic waveform stuff that you guys are talking about. And they said, well, okay, would you consider us anyway? And by the way, one of the technologies we're going to come out with is a bracelet. And so the guy gave me a bracelet. And so I thought, it's just jewelry, right? It's just jewelry. And, people wear stuff like that. It's kind of cool. The guy took it off his wrist. He gave it to me. I didn't take the position of working with the guy. I still thought it was weird stuff. I'm like, you don't understand. All I work with are doctors and scientists. So the bar is really high. And so, and I didn't get it. I didn't get it at the time. So, but something interesting happened to me. And that was that over the course of about the next month, I have a shoulder that needed surgery. I had 2 tears, needed surgical repair. My arm was just hanging there. And I was told by all these specialists, it's never going to get any better. And I started noticing that with that bracelet on, that I could lift my arm and do some interesting things. I also lost 20 pounds I did get COVID during this time, really bad. And I was extremely stressed out by it. And I noticed that for some reason, intuitively, I said, let me just take this bracelet. And I just set it on my chest. And it was so bad that it was almost like I was breathing out of a coffee straw. The anxiety that I had was tremendous. I didn't want to go into the hospital at that time. I thought I'm just anyway. So, but something happened when I put that bracelet on my chest. To some degree of my anxiety became reduced and I was able to breathe a little better. And so that got my attention. So anyway, I overcome all of that stuff. And I was in Las Vegas. I'm flying home, and I told my wife, I said, something really weird is happening. I can't explain it. I lost 20 pounds. I feel great. I overcome the other challenges that I had, and I can do all kinds of things with this arm. But if I take it off, I go from a throbbing 9 out of 10 on the pain scale with this shoulder. I couldn't even lift it. But if I put the bracelet on, I could lift weights. The pain would go to a 0, like gone. So I thought, this is just bizarre to me. The only difference is that bracelet. Well, what's in that bracelet? What does that thing do? So we went to Florida, and this is all leading back to, so the evolution of this story. Yes, go ahead.
So at this point, all that happened was you were given a bracelet. You didn't know anything about it, and you noticed these effects on yourself.
Correct.
Continue.
Correct. And my wife is the biggest skeptic in the world. So I come home, and she says, and I was hauling our luggage into the house, and she says, where's that bracelet you were talking about? I didn't know why. And I'm running to the bathroom. I took it off. I tossed it to her. And I'm trying to tell her, you need to self-assess first, right? Like just go on a scale of 1 to 10. If you got any kind of pain, any kind of discomfort, register what that is, and then put it on, and then go, okay, 3, 2, 1, then self-assess again. Because I didn't realize it was doing anything. And my self-assessment was, I got in the shower, and I got out of the shower, and my shoulder's throbbing. And I thought, usually you feel better when you get out of the heat and hot water and everything. Why is this thing killing me now? And I realized the only difference was that I had taken the bracelet off before I got in the shower. So I self-assessed. I put the bracelet on. I'm like, okay, 3, 2, 1, a 3, a 2, a 1, a nothing, like no pain. So this was interesting to me. That was fascinating to me.
I'll tell you, if that happened to me, and I'm wearing this thing, and my wife is wearing it too, I can't say I've noticed that, but if something like that happened to me, I would be digging as deep as I could all the way to China to find out, what is this thing doing? So I want to get that out of you.
Okay. So I'm going to continue so we get home. So I toss it to my wife. She goes, oh my gosh. And I'm running out of the bathroom, and she had put the bracelet, petite, super tiny, she wrapped it around her ankle, and I'm looking at her feet, and one foot is just like throbbing. The veins are just like this, and the other one like surface flat. We're seeing the one that she put it on have this physical response, and she goes, Buzz, my pain is gone, like instantly. So we're like, what is this magic thing? So we go to Florida, and if it's okay, I want to so the long story short, we ended up taking this technology and we put it in the air device. But
the air device,
we put it in the air device. I mean, this is going to blow you away. So I don't know what we've got. This is the evolution of a very interesting story. But Lucas, would you do me a favor? Would you pull up the PDF? So this is January of a couple of years ago, and I go to a doc friend of mine in Florida, and I said, Doc, look, weird stuff's happening. I'm about to become 55 years old, but weird stuff is happening, and I just like to figure out the state of my body at this point. And he says, okay, we're going to hook you up to 3 or 4 different types of equipment. And at one point I'm hooked up to, so let me sort of set the stage for where I'm at here. I'm seated at a desk that's up against a wall with a big screen television monitor right in front of me, right on the other side of the desk. It turns out, I later find out, that the Wi-Fi is underneath the desk, right at my feet, right at my ankles. Okay. And so he's hooking me up to 2 different types of HRV. That stands for heart rate variability equipment. Yeah. It's typically used for blood pressure and things like that. So he's got me hooked up to 2 different systems, and he's running them both at the same time. So we complete the evaluation, and he says, Buzz, wow. He said, you're in a high risk category for a cardiac event, stroke or heart attack. And he said, well, you've had a good life. And I'm like, well, I'd like to keep having one. And he says, "Don't worry, I'll get you on some meds. We'll take care of that. You'll be fine."
Yeah, you don't
And
want to be on meds.
And I said, "Well, how long am I going to have to be on those meds?" And he said, "All the rest of your life." And I'm like, "Whoa, okay," but the alternative is worse, right? So and he's showing me that the category that I'm in, the high risk, like pegged high risk category for a cardiac event. And so anyway, so he goes down, and it's murderer's row. It just looks horrible all the way down this report. And then he pulls up this second report, which is this one that's on the screen right now. Now, all we had is the left side of the screen. Okay, so this is a pre and a post heart rate variability scan. Lucas, I don't know if you can make that any larger for me. If not, that's okay. I kind of know it. There we go. Thank you so much. So basically, as you can see, this is January 4th. We're recording this just before my birthday. So January 4th, 2022 at 2:43 p.m. and January 4th, 2022 at 2:57. So as you can see, 70 beats a minute, 70 beats a minute. Didn't have any. Okay, so scroll down a little bit. So we're going through these results, and stop at this next one where it says stress index, if you can pull that up there. And so in the back to down, right there, please. Yep. So in the pre-test, the range, the range that I should have been in should be 10 to 100. Notice that my stress response was at 132. So I'm off the charts stressed out. Notice what happened in the post just 15 minutes later. I'm seated in the exact same stressful environment. My reaction, my body's response in this same harsh environment is now right in the middle zone. He's like, "This is interesting." Okay, would you scroll to the next section, Lucas, please? So then he's looking at the heart rate variability. You want your heart rate to have greater variability as your body adjusts to the environment. Okay, so in the pre-scan on the left, my heart rate is just pegged. Ta, 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 ta. Notice that the variability almost doubled in the post-scan. Okay, so I'm going to spoiler alert right now. I'm going to let you know the only difference between the pre-scan and the post-scan, and the doc thought I was absolutely nuts because I asked him to do another one right back to back, is I put on that bracelet. That's the only intervention, the only difference between the pre-scan and the post-scan. I'm seated at the exact same space. I'm still in the same harsh environment. The only difference is how my body is responding in that environment. Okay, let's go to the next section. This is really important here. So now we're looking at this total power. This is your resources available to run the engine of you. So it should be 2385 to 4545 is the power range, the energy, the resources my body should have available. Notice that I'm not even on the charts. So I was off the chart stress, but I'm not even in the safe zone. I'm at 1319. I'm below the chart in energy resources. Look what happened when I put on the bracelet. It tripled. I got my power back. So we're kind of confounded by this. Okay, let's keep scrolling down a little bit. We'll just sort of jump a little, bypass that one.
This is mind blowing. I want the viewer to know a little bit about heart rate variability. That's been around for decades, and there were very expensive machines in the past that you could measure your patients, and you want nice variability. You want a nice window where your heart, even though you think your heart is beating, say 60, it's not exactly, the time between beats is not the same with each beat. It moves a little bit. So you can count 60 in a minute, but it just changes. And you want variability because that tells you that your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems are operating optimally the more that variability is. And if it's not variable, your nervous system is stuck. How does that sound?
That's how I read it.
Okay, continue.
So just to sort of recap the stage, I'm looking, guys, this is before we actually had this technology. We're just looking at my results. That's why I wanted to bring this up. It's as organic as it gets. So if you scroll to the next section below this, there you go, right there. And so the doc, he just looks puzzled and he says, "This is interesting." He goes, "Well, this is why you lost the weight." He said, "Your metabolism is functioning like a much younger person in the post scan." Huh, interesting. Okay, let's scroll down. Let's go to the next section. Now, this doc, he's a brain specialist. And he's like,
Oh my
oh,
gosh.
right? Significant upregulation. And I was at an event, and I had this neurosurgeon literally walk up, and he saw this image, and he goes, oh my gosh. And he said, let me tell you exactly what this means. Well, I didn't know what it meant. I don't know what the difference.
I know what it means, but you tell the viewer, please.
Okay. Well, I still don't entirely know what it means, but I sort of do. But let's go on to the next one. Unless you want to comment.
You got to explain what that means.
Okay, I'll allow you to comment on it because I'm still not an expert in this particular segment.
This is a scan of brain activity, and there are devices that can show metabolism of various areas of the brain or the whole brain. And you want to see good metabolic activity because that means there's good circulation, there's good consumption of oxygen, and good energy production. And on the left side, it's showing dysfunction. And I'm interpreting the red to mean dysfunction. Maybe lack of oxygen, lack of metabolism. And now something happened in the meantime, and we're seeing green take over your brain, a normalization of metabolism. And my eyes popped out of my head when I saw this.
I was later made aware of brain oxygenation studies that were conducted in Japan, where students, a Japanese professor, placed a version of this technology in his classroom. It was a gift. He was gifted a paperweight, and the paperweight sat on his desk, and he started to notice some anomalous results. He started to notice that his poor students were becoming better students, and his better students were becoming phenomenal students. And he couldn't figure it out. He said, the only difference is this paperweight. Well, this weight was coated with this technology on the outside of the paperweight, which he didn't realize. And it was a refractor. So the lights were coming down from the top of the class, hitting the glass, and it was beaming on everybody in the class. Everybody was receiving the information. And on our website, you can literally see a brain oxygenation study. And they said this 1,000% is conclusive as to why the students were why their grades went up, why their mental acuity increased. Fascinating. So many benefits. Okay, so let's continue on.
You're giving me chills here. I didn't know this. And
yeah,
you're teaching me so much here. Continue.
So you can see the different segments. We've had other brain studies done. Actually, this was done. This technology existed for 30 years, and we're going to get into something very interesting when I give you the background behind it. But you can see the various waveforms and what's going on with brain activity and sort of a waking state. Let's continue on. I don't want to take too much more time on this, but this was this next section, this gerontological curve. If you'd scroll up right there. This was the main thing that got my attention because, in anti-aging and regenerative medicine, the holy grail is not the chronologic age, right? That's the day we all came off the assembly line. That's from then till right now.
Yeah.
But the biologic age is a calculation, and this is a 10,000 point algorithmic calculation of all of these factors that are contributing to how well you've maintained the wear and tear of that vehicle. In 20 years, 3 cars come off the assembly line at the same time. In 20 years, one can be a daily driver, one can be in a classic car show, and the other can be in a junkyard, right? And they all came off the assembly line. They're all, 1970 models, right? So my age at the time was 54. I was about 2 weeks away from being 55. But my biologic age, due to taking care of myself, was that of a 50-year-old. Now, I'll let you know that the company that manufactures this is some Russian tech, HRV. The average person that gets tested on this tests 2 years to 10 years above their chronologic age. Okay? So obviously I had done some things and was doing okay. Look at the post. This is I about fell out of my chair. A 10-year reduction in biologic age calculation instantly. And the only intervention was me putting on a bracelet.
That's unbelievable. I have to trust you on this. And for the viewer, my goal is to help people reduce their biological age. And I've done that through the years by trying to get you to eat better, ozone, exercise, among other things. And this is clear data, and most of the integrative physicians understand this. You went from 50 biological age to 40 simply by wearing this. I'm speechless right now.
We
Continue.
were also right. We were also, and the interesting thing happened. That doc, he's looking at me and he says, "Buzz, he says, I don't think that because I instantly on the other HRV, which we're not showing, I instantly went out of the high risk category for a cardiac event and I went to the low risk category for a cardiac event." And his observation was really telling. And he rocks back in his chair and he says, I don't think that you have hardening of the arteries, which is what his presumption was.
Yeah.
Okay. Plaque and hardening, everything else. He says, I don't think you have had hardening of the arteries. Here's what I think. I think you just had stress. And when your body is in sympathetic fight or flight, everything we're in a low is tense. And so the heart would have to work harder to pump through stressed out, tensed veins, capillaries, arteries, right? And he says, I think you just instantly went out of sympathetic. You instantly went out of fight or flight. And he said, I don't understand what's happening, but I'm seeing, this is my interpretation. So continue down a little bit, if you like. A little further down, that's just kind of a slice and dice of different segments.
I'll tell you, Buzz, Terry, my wife, she's going to be blown away when she sees this.
Now, this was something very interesting, because what later happened was that doc started telling his other friends that he knew had this particular software. And they started doing, and they said, how can we get some of those bracelets, right? It turned into the bracelet thing. And so we still didn't know. I'm just a user of I've got, they offered me to be the president of the company and they gave me one. And so my wife, Michelle, goes to meet with the manufacturers of this HRV equipment. And they said, docs are calling us asking if our equipment can be flawed. And there's no way. It's just reading what it reads and it's reading what it reads. And they said, we've never seen or heard of anomalous results like this, but it's not our equipment. So who are these people? So we live in around Nashville, Tennessee area. They said, we're going to be at a conference in that area. So I was out of town. I was in Vegas. My wife goes to meet with them and they're like, we're going to test you on our system with our own eyes, with your own stuff. And we're going to get to the bottom of this. We've had too many phone calls. So now my wife, by this point, we start to acquire more of the stuff. And so my wife, and we've learned that these are wearable health optimizing accessories. So think like acupuncture. Think like wearable acupuncture is how this is a concept from what you think about. So she's got earrings on, she's got a pendant on, she's got a bracelet on, she's wearing a hat. She's kind of overdone it. She's probably wearing 6 or 7 things. So my wife goes and she takes all of her, we call it tech, we call it Life Armor Tech, because by this point we have acquired it. She takes all of her Life Armor off and they test her. And she was 59 years old and she tested as a 66-year-old, not wearing anything. She tested as 66. She then puts the tech back on. Unfortunately, she put everything back on. She didn't put on one thing like me. She cheated. Her biologic age dropped to that of a 33-year-old. 33. She took it off, went back to 66. They're blown away. They're like, whoa. They said, is there anything else? She goes, oh, yeah, music. This was created as music. We're going to get to some very interesting things coming up. So it was created as music. So she plays the music as she's wearing everything. Her biologic age went to that as a 31-year-old. So I get a phone call. I don't know when all this is going on, but I get a phone call, Buzz. They'd like to talk to you. The next thing you know, they wanted somebody to come out to meet with me to talk about buying our company because of one particular result that they had never, ever, ever experienced. And they've done thousands of these. They said what they witnessed that they were most impressed by was this energy flow all up and down the spine going from a compromised state to 100% energy flow all up and down the spine. So now we're dealing with central nervous system. We're dealing with all kinds of things. They said they had never seen 100% energy flow. So that was kind of interesting. We didn't end up doing a deal to sell the tech. We said, let's keep figuring out what we got here because we weren't quite certain yet. But anyway, we don't have to go any further on this. You can close that out, Lucas. But so that was the very first that really got our attention, and that was kind of the start of it. So long story short, we ended up acquiring the worldwide rights to some very unique technology. And this technology was developed about 30 years ago. And I just became fascinated, like everybody else who sees this. I got to know more. I need to know more. How does this work? How is this different? Is this some kind of a frequency thing? Like, what's making this happen? What is the mechanism of action behind these anomalous results that we're seeing that are clinical?
I've got to tell you, at this point, it's hard for me to believe. It's hard for me to believe that wearing this thing on your wrist or your ankle can do something like that. Now, I've written in my Substack about sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. And in today's world, we're becoming sympathetic dominant, which means much more work on the heart, which means vascular disease, which means higher blood pressure. And if you're sympathetic dominant, it's the sympathetic nervous system that constricts a blood vessel to go like this. And that's how your nervous system works to divert flow to where it's needed. You want to be in more a parasympathetic state, which is a state of relaxation and regeneration. And sympathetic is flight or fight. And most people understand that. So we're and I'm in agreement with this, we're in a state of almost constant fight or flight due to environmental stresses, including EMF. Now you're coming along with something I don't understand, and I want to understand this, please.
Okay, so, and I did also at the same time. So the evolution of this, I'm realizing, I think this is bigger than this blocker type of stuff that I'm looking for. So clearly, there's these altered states that are happening in the body. Something is inducing that altered state. It's beneficial. It's favorable. I didn't know what it was. And I had to realize that just because I didn't know what it was didn't mean it wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And this was a lot of the challenge that we deal with when we're dealing with allopathic docs or folks that just, we're in the box. We only know what we know. And one of the things that I'd say often, I'm like, what your doctor didn't learn at medical school can kill you because we only know what we know. And so, but we have to be open to thinking outside of the box, And so what I realized, what I learned on this journey was I was thinking in this Newtonian physics box. Right. And that's what we've been educated in. That's what everything is based on, and I was used to dealing with metabolic stuff like this has to, a molecule, a cell has got to grow up, replicate all that. What I learned was that what we're dealing with is this new concept called bioenergetics. We're dealing with energy. And this, I didn't understand how this could happen so quickly. And then I was educated. They're like, Buzz, when the energy is flowing, the lights are on, everybody can see. Lights are off, instantly nobody can see. Lights are on, that's energy. Energy is instant. And so what I come to learn is that, and you're correct in what I found from doing thousands of these studies on people, is that everybody, unless you're a monk and you're meditating nonstop, you're in a chronic sympathetic state due to the harshness of our electronic devices and Wi-Fi. We're constantly inundated nonstop with this stuff, and we were not designed to thrive in that type of toxic tech environment. So I just became passionate about this new form of invisible enemy that was breaking us down and making us sit and shorten our life cycles. But I didn't have any idea where this was going to lead or what the solution was. And it turned out that the solution was that little bracelet I was wearing and the technology behind that. So long story short, we acquired the worldwide rights to this technology because it worked and it worked and it worked. I saw a testimonial from this Japanese professor, and he said, this works 100% of the time on 100% of the people instantly. And I thought, what kind of a nutcase professional would ever put their name on 100% instantly? And it turned out it's a professor, his name is Professor Sadao Omata-san, in Japan. And it turns out he's like the Dr. Oz of Japan. They said, Buzz, this isn't a regular, this is like the guy in Japan. And they said, I don't know if you knew, but our technology has been in Japan for almost 30 years. It's never been in the U.S., even though scientists invented it in the U.S. The Japanese, because of such an advanced cultural appreciation for energy medicine, they've been doing this for thousands of years. You talk energy medicine here in the States, nobody knows what you're talking about. It doesn't exist. And so they said, what you're dealing with is not a bracelet. We were able to take the technology, the information, and embed it into a wearable application so that the information comes in contact with the body receives the information, and then responds accordingly. It's almost like the sun is using a light wave to send information to the body via a photon. The light wave hits the body says, oh, I know what to do with that, make vitamin D. So what we're essentially talking about in this energy medicine space is one, energy flow, but also information that comes in contact with the body that the body appreciates. And so I'm like, okay, I'm learning more about this. So I said, well, how did you guys get to this anomalous gift that you have? That now sort of the backstory is it was developed, it was identified. And a Japanese business person spent $2 million a year, and he kept it in Japan. He bought the worldwide rights, and it stayed in Japan for almost 30 years. We're bringing it to the States for the first time. So what did they find in their initial research? And I said, well, how did it do? And at first I was like, I wasn't going to invest in taking this on because I didn't understand it. And they said, what are you reticent about it? I said, well, I don't know. I still don't know. We're doing more research. And I said, well, how did it do in Japan? And they said 70% market penetration over 30 years. And I'm, what? 70%? Coke or Pepsi don't have that here, right? They had such a cultural appreciation for energy medicine. It's like they already knew about the black and white TV. And some guy just shows up with a color flat screen, and it was so obvious. And so, okay, let's learn more about this. So how did you get to where you got to? So over my right shoulder, I don't know if it's right as on the screen, but I'm going to point to, this was the very first experiment that they did. So this is going to lead to another question that you're going to ask about Professor Gayev or Garyev, it sounds like, that you had written about in one of your earlier Substacks. So I do read your Substacks. So this is what the scientist research was based upon, some of his founding research. So about 30 years ago, in the journal Nature was an article. So Nature, Science, very esteemed professional journal. So there was an article, and in this article was research that had been conducted by the Germans out of Max Planck Institute. So 20 Nobel Prize winners or so probably come out of Max Planck. And what the Germans had done is they had taken a potato, and what they identified from a potato that was still in the ground. So it's in its ideal thriving growth state, right? The potato's in its growth state. They took the information from that potato, and what this information was called is they basically identified what was called the electromagnetic genetic DNA sine wave. So if we break all those words up, electromagnetic genetic DNA sine wave. Basically, the wave of information coming off of a potato in its thriving growth state while it's in the ground. They pointed that information at a post-harvest potato, once plucked from its source of nutrition, and it's shrinking and it's dying and it's getting smaller. The Germans were able to induce, according to this article, what they called hypergrowth. They were able to induce the dying potato to grow 1 centimeter per day with no food, no water, no sunlight, just thriving information that's telling it you're thriving, you're thriving, you're thriving, you're not dying. Yes, sir.
You're telling me that you've got a potato out of the ground, like this would be a potato, and you're sending information from a living, thriving potato that's in the ground, and out of the ethers, this thing grows.
Correct.
Is that what you're telling me?
According to this article, that's what they identified.
And that's in Nature.
They called it hypergrowth. It's in Nature from almost 30 years ago. Now, in that same article was more research conducted by a Russian firm. This is where Professor Gayev comes into play.
Yeah.
The Russians similarly had taken a seed from a certain genus of tree in its ideal growth state, and they identified the electromagnetic genetic DNA sine wave, the wave of information coming off the DNA of a seed in its thriving growth state.
To elaborate for the viewer, DNA, and I'm trying to do this mechanistically in concepts the Western mind would understand. DNA is a spiral coil, and all spiral coils, like a slinky, vibrate. And it's as it vibrates, it's putting out its information to the universe, and the universe is putting information into that spiral coil, altering its vibration. How does that sound?
Pretty good. And then, we're dealing with epigenetics, right? At this point also, right? Our environment shaping our genes and what happens.
So this is not the gene sequence. This is not thymine, adenine, guanine, etc. That's the hard wiring. This is the soft wiring of the expression of that DNA. Continue. Tell me more.
Okay. So the Russians took this information from a thriving seed and they pointed it at another seed, except for the other seed was from a tree that was dead and irradiated, worse than dead, from the Chernobyl area.
So wait. They got a seed from a dead tree.
No, from a living tree to begin with.
Yeah, so they've got a good thriving seed.
Information, correct.
And they got the information and they beamed that at what was the nature of that seed? What did that seed come from?
It came from the exact same genus of tree, okay, from plant, matching, except for that the recipient was dead, probably worse than dead and irradiated from the Chernobyl forest, okay?
So this seed grew on a tree that died in Chernobyl.
Correct.
Continue.
So when the dead seed was put in contact of the information from the thriving seed, the dead seed resuscitated, came back to life, and literally sprouted. And the purpose of this article wasn't that. The purpose of the article was, I don't know if you remember 30 years ago, the concern was that Chernobyl area is going to be dead for hundreds of thousands of years. The purpose was that science may have identified some way that doesn't have to be the case. That's what the purpose of the article was. Our scientists, however, flabbergasted by this. And they said, well, wait a minute. If you could do that with this potato and you could do that with the seed, what if you could identify the human electromagnetic genetic DNA sine wave? And that's what started this. And this is where Professor Gariev, his research led them to exploring him 30 years ago. Okay? And the story becomes very interesting, and we're not going to have time to tell the whole thing. But basically, in his lifespan, the furthest that Professor Gariev got was to the organ level. He found that you could take information, because what we're talking about is information, from a thriving state organ and hit a compromised organ of matching DNA. So you would have to get the information. If your pancreas was bad, you'd have to get it from a sibling, not a spouse. That the information from the thriving state pancreas applied to the compromised state pancreas would cause the compromised state pancreas to act in anomalous ways such that regeneration would happen. And he was able to prove this. And he proved it in multiple studies. He went to Canada. Obviously, this was very controversial. And so what he referred to this science as waveform genetics. Waves carrying information that has genetic information. Okay? And that the body, that we are just receivers of information, and our body responds accordingly to that information. Professor Gariev was nominated for the Nobel Prize in 2020. The ceremony was to take place in 2021. He had let me first tell you what this nomination was for. Professor Gariev took a petri dish full of salamander eggs and a petri dish full of frog eggs, and he put the two petri dishes side by side. he took a laser, set it on the table, and the laser shone through the salamander eggs, out the back of the petri dish, into the frog eggs, and they just let the light continue to go from the salamanders into the frogs. When the salamander, now this is late in his life, right? He's conducted this research well beyond that initial article. When the salamanders hatched, they all hatched as salamanders. And when the frogs hatched, they all hatched as salamanders. Salamanders. What happened? The light, the photons going through the DNA, the physical molecules of the DNA, the information of the DNA piggybacked on a photon and was delivered to the frog eggs.
Right.
So his nomination for the Nobel Prize was for biophotonic DNA delivery, biophotonic information. That information can ride on light. Okay? So you go, let's talk about that mechanism where we said, okay, the sun is sending us information. The sun is sending information. The body goes, oh, I know what to do with that, decodes that, the information. So what we're really talking about is information. Okay? So, and then he switched it. The frogs turned into salamanders.
Yeah.
Okay? And so he's nominated for the Nobel Prize. Pretty big deal. Unfortunately, the professor had a very mysterious passing a month before the ceremony.
Oh my God! So they don't give Nobel Prizes if you're dead, and he didn't get the Nobel Prize for this.
Correct.
Oh my God! If he
But the
got
research-
the Nobel Prize, the world would have known about this.
They would have known about it. Everyone would know about
Everyone would know
biophotonic.
it. And to me, this discovery is as big as Einstein. To me.
Before we jump back in, we would like to give another shout out to our sponsor, PROMOLIFE. Bringing you closer to the benefits of ozone therapy, proudly rooted in the USA, PROMOLIFE is at the forefront of assembling ozone therapy generators designed for both personal and professional use right here on American soil. Meticulously handcrafted and precision calibrated, each ozone generator speaks quality and reliability. PROMOLIFE has simplified the ozone therapy process by offering a complete line of high-quality accessories that allow you to use ozone in ways you never thought possible. Don't miss out and explore the entire collection of cutting-edge offerings at www.promolife.com/ozone. Make sure you use the coupon code in the description of this podcast for an exclusive discount towards your journey to enhanced well-being. This episode is also brought to you by Simply O3. We are proud to introduce our latest innovation, Glycine, a premium ozonized glycerin designed to support your wellness journey. Ozone therapy has been transforming health for over 100 years, backed by more than 2,500 medical studies. Known for boosting immune function, improving blood flow, and reducing fatigue, it is a powerhouse for your health routine. Ready to experience Glycine yourself? Visit www.simply03/ozone to order. If it's back ordered, just leave them with your email, and you'll be the first to know when the next batch is ready. Don't miss out and discover the benefits of Glycine and take a step toward better health today. And remember, your health is an investment, not an expense. With Simply O3 and the revolutionary product, Glycine, you're choosing quality, innovation, and care. Visit www.simply03.com/ozone and make Glycine a part of your wellness routine today.
So, want me to tell you how chemtrails work?
Chemtrails?
Let me tell you how they work.
Yeah, tell.
Oh, man, I don't know if you're going to be able to play this video.
I don't want you to stop. I did not expect this.
So you got
God
the
is my
sun.
judge. This is unbelievable. I'm looking at Lucas. He's shell shocked. Continue.
So what you have is I started to learn about the mechanism of information transfer. Okay. One day I'm up on the roof. I got a condo in Vegas. I'm up on the roof and I'm doing my exercises. And I'm feeling pretty good because now my shoulder's working pretty well. And it's late in the afternoon and I'm working out in the pool and I see the plane fly right for the sun and the plane's flying right. I thought, this is weird. I know the patterns of how they spray and what they do. It's going right for the sun. I thought, this is weird. It's unusual. So I'm kind of watching it get closer. Right as it crosses the path of the sun, I feel like I'm choking, like I just breathed a big whiff of powder or something. It was so strong. I'm choking. I got to get out of the pool, go downstairs, go in the condo, and get some water. Right as the plane flew in front of the sun. I'm in the condo. I'm hearing all this noise downstairs. Boom, 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 like music or something. I look out the window. My condo is right on Las Vegas Boulevard.
Yeah.
I look out the window. There's 15,000 people dressed up as Elvis for a rock and roll marathon down Las Vegas Boulevard. And all of a sudden, it becomes very clear to me exactly what just happened. So when stuff is sprayed in the air, we'd see it sprayed and we would think, oh, that's going to blow to Wyoming or that's going to blow someplace else, right? And it'll land over there. And then there's stuff and it lands and whatever. But what really happens is it doesn't have to land because you have adverse information in the chemical and the sun hits that and picks up the information and hits us at the speed of light.
Oh, my God.
The information is transferred to us at the speed of light.
This is making unbelievable sense to me. It's just because I keep reading about chemtrails, and some of it's believable, some of it's not believable. But I keep talking to people who are credible telling me that they get sick or something happens with this stuff. This makes absolute sense to me. 100%.
We're
Lucas,
dealing
you're
in the
shaking
quantum
your
realm.
head too. It doesn't have to even hit the ground. We are getting that information energetically through the photons that come to us through this, whatever it is that's up there, and it's hitting us.
Right. So in theory, I'm going to say in theory, okay, but I've just been totally immersed in this education. I became fascinated with how quantum stuff works, but most importantly, how our body reacts to invisible stuff. Now, so kind of back to the air mission. Long story short, so I asked, I said, okay, so the research was based upon that initial research, and their theory was, well, what if you could identify the human electromagnetic genetic DNA sine wave, the wave of information coming off of a human? Well, ideally, you'd want to do that from an ideal growth state, so probably young human thriving information. What if you could take young thriving human information and apply it to an older person? How might the body respond to that as our stem cells are replicating?
Comment. We know that if you take blood or serum from a young rat and you put it in an old rat, the old rat becomes young. Now, that's blood. That's physical, chemical stuff. You're now talking about an energy, not physical. And we've heard for years about, I hate to bring it up, I don't want to become unbelievable, but, satanic rituals and blood of children. And I don't know the truth of this, but when I saw the report on the serum or blood of a young animal put into an older animal, I said, oh my God, maybe something really is happening. But it doesn't have to be physical. We can take the energy of a child and beam that energy to us, is what you're saying, and it's going to alter our genetic expression. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Yes, that's what you're hearing. That's what I believe to be the case, and that's what I believe. I know that. I mean, I'm not going to have to say I believe
this is Star Trek.
This is the biggest thing in anti-aging and regenerative medicine that I've ever seen. It's the biggest thing in the biggest thing. But we
You're
don't know.
You're going to put me out of business. I'm not going to need ozone anymore.
No, my big three things: ozone, exosomes, and bioenergetics. Those three things. Okay, so let's go kind of back to the evolution of this. Well, how did you get to where you got to? And they said, we worked on it for 3 years. We couldn't crack the code. Along the way, we identified the code. This is the math. So basically what they identified was the mathematical formulation of information that matches thriving human DNA. That's all they did. the mathematical formulation of information that matches thriving human DNA. And before they did that, they were able to crack the code on the mathematical formulation of information that matches thriving plant DNA and thriving pet DNA. Okay, so before they figured out the people, they figured out the pets and the plants. We are so complex. We've got a gazillion frequencies and all kinds of information. They didn't think they'd ever do it. Literally, divine intervention is how this happened. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but without divine intervention, what we're talking about now doesn't happen for humans. So they were granted through this they were granted information that matched, because here's what happens. It's like a remote control in a television. You walk around with a remote control and you can hit 20 different TVs. They don't come on. You're sending information through a light wave, right? A photon, and it hits a receiver, and the receiver goes, nope, I don't appreciate you. Not a match, not a match, not a match. But you hit the right TV and the TV comes on.
Yes.
Okay. So it has to be a match so that the receiver receives the information that was sent through the remote control and goes, oh, I know what to do with that. And then it responds accordingly. These bracelets that we're talking about, this is like the remote control sending information to your body. Your body goes, oh, I know what to do with that. The air machine, we ended up putting the thriving pet DNA information in the air technology, thriving plant DNA information in the technology, and thriving people DNA information in the technology. And it's transmitted inaudibly via radio waves, 100 yards in all direction. That's what's unique, special, and different about this air technology. It's just one of the delivery mechanisms of a much greater thing. Yes, sir.
You know, I wrote about your device in my Substack, and I got a lot of comments about price and complaints. Now you've given me the information about what is making your device different and what's making it more expensive. I'm thanking you for that, because I can go back to my subscribers and say, hey, there's some things about this you didn't know and I didn't know. And I'm going to direct them to watch this, because if your device, first of all, I wanted to comment on the fact that as far as the physical properties of your device, it's putting out peroxide rather than ozone. Ozone you can smell. No, clearly, and ozone in high concentrations can be an irritant. But open up a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, stick your nose over it, and you don't smell anything. It's just like water. But hydrogen peroxide has properties, and we've used it for decades to nebulize and breathe into your lungs to clear out infections and other things. And it does not damage your lungs, although if it's really high, you don't want to do it in high concentration. You got to do it wisely. So your device, instead of putting out ozone to purify the air, is putting out peroxides. So that's the physical. But now on an energetic level, you're telling me it's also got embedded certain frequencies that go out and do all these other things. Am I here? Did I put that?
That's correct. Yeah, 100 yards in all directions. So remind me to talk about the difference between about frequencies. Just if you would, just remind me to come back and talk about frequencies, because it's very important that people know. In fact, let's just do it right now.
Do it.
So a wave and a frequency are the same things, and I'm extremely concerned about this. So they are transmitters of information. They carry information. So think of it as like a bucket, okay? Well, here's another example. Let's think of it as a radio station. I tune myself to, I'm going to transmit at 101 FM.
Yes.
And Doc, you like, hey, I'm resonating with Buzz. I want to tune into Buzz, and I'm going to receive 101 FM. Buzz is the transmitter of the information, and I'm the receiver of the information. Right. Okay? And so that's 101 FM. Here's the problem with everybody jumping into all this frequency stuff and not knowing. We don't know what we don't know, okay, at this point. And this will clarify that. The challenge is that it's not about the bucket. It's about the information that it's carrying. So in the morning on 101 FM, I can be broadcasting gospel music or some classical music or something that resonates in an uplifting way for your being. But on the same 101 FM in the evening, I could be playing heavy metal or something
Yeah.
that's harsh, it's on the same frequency.
Yes.
The difference is the information.
Right. People can
So-
understand that. Great analogy.
So just jumping into, well, I'm playing the, it was something with like crystals. Never resonated with me. And I think, well, God made them. They're in the earth. Or they're natural. Some of I just, okay. And it's not anything about, it's just my own personal response to them. They carry information. They transmit information. Radios were crystal radios, right?
Yes.
Okay. Who had it last? What was the information that was held that's being transmitted? So this energy thing is really important, that we know what we're allowing into our space, what we're receiving. So all people running out, well, I do this frequency and I play that frequency and I play this. I mean, like, these things can be used nefariously. I'll just say that. And
I see that. I think our viewers will understand that as well.
So we know exactly what information is being transmitted when we transmit it. Okay. So, yes, sir.
As soon as you said nefarious, what came to mind is what happened with American diplomats. They believed that they were being beamed with things in either Cuba or some other countries. And I can see where you don't have to be beamed, say, with microwaves itself to cause physical damage. You could be beamed with bad energy.
Bad information.
Yes, bad information.
Let me just share something that's of tremendous concern to me. Remember the salamanders and the frogs?
Yes.
Information can go through sound waves, through light waves.
Yes.
Olfactory sense of smell.
Yes.
These are information emitters. Doesn't even matter the content. Information transmitters. What if we were being told that maybe we're a salamander and we're not a frog?
Maybe that's why these kids are becoming cats, and in school they got to go into the litter box.
Something to think about. What if we're being... Something to think about. Okay, so we need to get this out. We don't need to get this thing canceled. But you got it. That's my greatest concern. And there's a whole bunch of gender stuff going on that's real. The salamanders to the frogs, that's real. What happened?
You've opened up an Alice in Wonderland with... This is infinitely deep. It makes sense. I mean, the science is real. That guy should have gotten a Nobel Prize for me, the discovery, even beyond Einstein. As much as I like Einstein. And that there could be unseen... I mean, look, using this, you could probably cause a crowd to become violent or placid. We don't have a clue how this is being used to disrupt our society or enhance our society. This is frightening stuff, Buzz.
Well, I didn't intend to go all down this many rabbit holes, but it's on my heart, and I think it's meant to be. A friend of ours, Dr. Sinatra, I don't know if you were friends. Did you know Dr. S? Yeah. So sometimes things happen that are just meant to happen at certain times, and we had just acquired this technology. I didn't even know how it worked. I didn't know anything about it. 2 people in my life, when they received it, said, humanity needs this right now. And I sent a pendant to his Connecticut place, and I sent a pendant to his Florida place, and just kind of forgot about it. Now we got no business cards, we have no information. I just had gotten the tech, and I get a phone call from him, and he said, "Buzz, can I tell you something?" And something just came over me, just said, "Shut up," because I didn't even have a business card. I was anxious to tell him what I knew, and he said, "Humanity needs this right now," and he said, "I can tell you exactly where it needs to be. This is fantastic," and he said, "It needs to be right at the heart." The heart, there are things going on in the world right now that are impacting the heart, the brain, and I think the kidneys. And he said, but the heart in particular needs bioenergetic support more than ever. And so, and he said something that was kind of interesting to me, that to hear, an MD say, and he said, it needs to be right at the heart chakra.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay. And then he said, I want you to promise me something. I said, I want you to promise me that you're going to work with my son, Steph, on this. Now, I don't know Steph. To this very date, I still don't know Steph. I mean, I know of him. And I said, your son who almost died of EMF and is like on some Greek island or something right now. And I said, well, but Doc, that's not a good model for, business success. He doesn't even have a phone. I said, we're going to do this right. He goes, oh, yeah. But he says, I want you to promise me you're going to work with Steph on this. He goes, this is important. And I said, okay. So anyway, we talked for a couple more minutes off the phone. A week later, I was at a stem cell conference, and I was talking to somebody because I'm excited about this new stuff, right? And now we're going to, and I was telling a doc about the Dr. S story. And he said, not the Dr. Sinatra that just passed away. And I said, oh, no, I just talked to him on Monday. This is Saturday, same week. And he had just passed that week. So I thought, I've always felt that there was certain reasons that people come into your life at certain times to say certain things. And he seemed to have a knowing or knowledge about what was going on. So I'm going to backtrack to the original scientist, and now they start trying to identify the human electromagnetic genetic DNA sine wave, the information that matches us. So through divine intervention, they basically come up with a formula that mathematically connects, but they didn't know what it would do. And so they found a gentleman by the name of Dr. Harold Kober. He's since passed away. And he ran this thing called the Florida Institute of Energy. And he said, if this has to do with energy in any way, shape, or form, I can measure it. I've created a device to measure energy. And so they were like, okay, great. This is our guy. We're going to find out if this is doing anything. So they went to the Florida Institute of Energy, and they had a student, a subject. And it has to do with these images right behind me here. And so the image, this one over here, is a subject. Now they've superimposed so you can see the subject because you couldn't see him very well. So that's just kind of a mock-up of somebody standing there. But they took a subject and they hooked him up with 100 electrodes, head to toe. And through this device, they could measure the literal field of energy coming off of the entity that had all these electrodes hooked up to it. And so what you're looking at here is the field of energy coming off of a human, according to Dr. Kober. And you can see, so this measured field size, field balance, and field stability are what these measurements are on the bottom. So he went on to say that this subject had challenges, that there was energy blockages or deficiency, that this energy wasn't flowing properly in this person as he perceived that it should. So that's the before. This started out as music. This was created as music. And even Professor Gariev, so now we're getting into the development of this, is through the science of cymatics, sound shaping matter. And Professor Gariev, throughout his whole life, when he would open his seminars, he would quote Genesis 1, God spoke. So you imagine somebody at the peak of the scientific acumen starting his seminars with Genesis 1. What he was really talking about was cymatics and information being shared through sound waves. So what happened with the original scientist is they all they had was this music that could generate. So basically what they said, Buzz, here's what we did. We created a tone, and that tone made a vibration, and that vibration made a wave, and that wave carries the information that matches us in an ideal thriving state. And so what happened was at Dr. Kober's office, they did, this was the before. And so this is a morphing image, like on a big TV monitor.
But Buzz, what we see on the screen right now, over your right shoulder, we see what looks like a shadow of a person. And is there another image to your right of that?
Let's see. Okay, there's two images there.
Yeah, let's go a little more.
Okay. How's that?
A little more. You're getting there. Go a little bit more. Yes. All right. Now I can see, sort of like a ghostly figure, and I can see a human form to the right, and now that form enlarges, and you see larger energetic appendages, we'll say.
Right.
So
Okay.
explain that to the viewer, what we're seeing.
So Dr. Kober hooks up a subject to 100 electrodes.
Yeah.
And this is literally measuring the voltage coming off of the human. Okay? Measurable energy. And this is a morphing energetic picture, okay? Because it's on a TV monitor, basically. And it's measuring the field size, the field balance, and the field stability. For some reason, those three things are important: field size, field balance, and field stability. So what happened next is this was created using music. And so they played, like, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s boombox, they played the music that they had created. And as soon as the music started playing, the whole screen turned blue. And Dr. Kober said, well, wait a minute, stop the presses. There must be a malfunction because the whole screen went blue. And remember back then there was a blue screen of death, like, hey, wait, something's wrong in their computer. And so he asked them to stop, and he was going to recalibrate, make sure everything was plugged in correctly. And when that happened, they stopped playing the music. And when they stopped playing the music, the screen went back to this, came on the screen. And he said, wait a minute, do that again. And they hit play, and this screen instantly appeared. And he said, okay, stop. And this screen went back. Do you see what's going on here?
Yeah.
As soon as they turned on the music, instantly this state was induced. Instantly. And I don't know if you can't probably see it, but it says field size, field balance, and field stability maxed out.
So hang on. So I take it that one on my right side or your left side, the larger one, that's what you want.
This is what you want. So what are we looking at here, right? This is the real thing. What are we looking at here? What we are looking at is what is now, which is actually your electromagnetic genetic DNA sine wave. It's the field of information that's emanating from all of the information coming off of our bodies. All of our collected organ systems, everything's the energetic field. Now, we later know that this field contains information. That it's not just an electromagnetic field. See, we're electromagnetic beings on an electromagnetic planet. It defies logic that we would not also have an electromagnetic field. High School 101 said everything electrical has a field around it, and everything magnetic has a field around it. And it, like I said, it just defies logic that as electromagnetic beings on an electromagnetic planet that we would not also have a field around us. You're looking at it.
You can move it back to you now. I just have to comment on this, and I apologize. I've said for years that what we think affects the next person. The masters of the ages said the same thing. I do kinesiology. I know that my thoughts affect the next person. This is an explanation then of how this is science. This is not fantasy. It's not religion. We're showing that our thoughts just affect everything out there, the entire universe. And that's what the masters have taught us for millennia.
Correct. And this is a scientific representation of that influence. As you have a different thought, they said as you would have a different thought, the energy would shift around the brain area because we have electrical activity around the brain. So the main energy generator is our heart, but the heart and the brain are the two primary. And so this field right here, this is now known, they took that really long word, electromagnetic genetic DNA sine wave, and they've shortened it, NIH, this is now, has shortened it to your biofield. So every time we say biofield, this is a photo of your biofield.
Wow.
Bio means life. This is your life field.
This is like Kirlian photography.
Except it's not. It's the actual voltage measured. So this is Kirlian is a different representation. This is an actual photo of the actual energy.
Right. I'm just saying they merge. Kirlian is part of this.
Yeah, it's showing similar, the same thing.
Damn.
Yeah. So this is NIH biofield. So medical Western science now. So what is this? We're talking about energy and energy flow, and clearly this is in a better state of energetic resources, right? And all that happened is the music plays. You turn off the music, it goes back to that. So you put on the bracelet, you have this enhanced state. You take off the bracelet, you go back to that. Now it's starting to make sense to me why these anomalous things are happening. But okay, so now we know that this has to do with energy. I know how you guys got here and information, energy and information. And so, but what else is this field? What is this? This is like an invisible organ that we don't see. There are certain people that I've come to find out are actually gifted with the ability to see this.
Yes.
They can see energy.
Yes.
I'm not one of those. I need a picture.
I saw that once. I have to tell you, once in my life, when I had been opened up at an amazing conference, when I came back, I actually saw that in a client, and I haven't been able to retrieve it.
So I'm going to go one further. So this field, this bioenergetic field, or this biofield, which we all have, I come to liken this now to like an invisible organ. I believe that this is part of our autonomic nervous system.
Yeah.
I believe that this field is picking up and sharing information that is, if a threat is coming, this field lets us know.
That's how people get a premonition.
It lets us know. And then our hormones, everything is going to adjust accordingly. So here's where this is all going to come together now. So strong field. This is like Star Trek force field up, warp speed ahead. When the field is like this, it appears from what we found is that this field is our natural human superpower. Okay, this field, when it's strong, is protecting us from external interfering stressor waves.
Makes sense.
Like EMF, Wi-Fi, and 5G. And when the field is weak, we're subject to receiving all of that stuff. So when you saw me, those before and after results, and I was in the exact same spot, the difference was field up, force field up. My body said, oh, I'm not in the rain. It's like a umbrella just went up. It's still raining. The environment is still harsh around us. However, my top thing is not, I don't have to be in fight or flight, find shelter, find shelter, find shelter, find shelter. Now my body can go, okay, what's the next thing I need to focus on? Because the umbrella is up, the force field is up, we're being protected from our environment. Remember, I still had the Wi-Fi at my feet. I'm still in front of a big, 50-inch monitor. I'm still being zapped with EMF, but my body responded favorably as if I wasn't zapped by EMF. So what I found is that it doesn't matter how the environment's going to be harsh. We can't escape this stuff. However, we can now have a force field of protection around us 24/7 in our homes with this air technology or whatever, or wearables. That's why the wearables are so important, because this is that force field. This induces that state versus the compromised state. So we're like, you're going to be on your phone anyway. You might as well be on your phone, optimized, energized, and protected. You're going to be in your home anyway. You might as well breathe air that's optimizing, energizing, protecting you. You're going to be in your car anyway. You might as well drive with these things on your car that's going to turn your car from a stress box, especially if you've got an electric car with all the stuff that's going on there, to something that's going to optimize you, energize you, and protect you. So the next concept came to, okay, how can we live in this state, protected from the harshness of our environment? That, this biofield was probably designed to protect us from our environment. However, it was probably not designed for the amount of harshness that we're inundated with in today's toxic tech environment. So that really became the challenge, is how can we induce this state? And so then I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm already building this air thing, right? It's evolved from an air machine, right? I'm already building this thing. Why can't we make that in that? And oh, by the way, since it's going to be in our home, why can't we broadcast out the thriving plant information that makes plants go crazy? Why can't we, because they're subject to the same stressors that we are, why can't we broadcast the pet information and broadcast the people information? And now what you have is something that's systemically upregulating everything. It's protecting us, and it's upregulating everything because of the information we're receiving, the directive to perform like a younger, healthier, more thriving version of ourselves. And there's no behavior modification. So your third, your first generation person, that's the second generation, third generation, all in this combined household now, it's benefiting everybody, and they don't even know it. There's no behavior modification.
The amazing thing to me, I'm still in shock right now, because all of this energy stuff, I believe in, I understand, I experience it, but I did not expect that you could have a physical device that could, on your wrist, that could alter that. And that it's mind blowing. I want to show the viewer one thing for understanding. Here's a wire. When a current runs through this wire, there is a field, an energy field around that can be measured. The field and the current are the same thing. You can't have one without the other. If you have a field, you have a current. If you have a current, you have a field. Well, there's currents in us. So there's fields around us. And these fields, when they get acted upon, are going to affect the currents inside our body. That's the law of physics. It's immutable.
So what we're really talking is, you might say, it's energy medicine, essentially, okay? And what I've come to realize, and this is an entirely new field of research that in the West for us, is that, simply put, we are all subject to bioenergetic, life energy, blockages or deficiencies that occur as a result of injury, illness, or aging. And so I kind of think of it like this, when we're young, we're new, we got this information superhighway, and the information and the energy just flows and flows and flows. But over time, there's like potholes and roadblocks and car accidents and all kinds of stuff, right? That just slows the flow or interferes with the flow. And so scar tissue is a great example of that. Energy's flowing, it hits the scar tissue, just, right?
Yeah.
So everything under the scar tissue is not being nourished or fed until okay? So what we're finding is, my analogy is that it's kind of like you have a stream, and the stream is flowing, but a beaver builds a dam in the stream, and everything downstream starts to die off because it's not being nourished anymore. It's not being fed, it's not being watered. Well, if we thought of that stream as energy, and we have an energy blockage, everything downstream that becomes deficient starts to die off. And maybe a lot of the symptoms that we're experiencing aren't physical symptoms or something we just go, maybe they're symptoms of bioenergetic blockage or deficiency, where things are not being nourished because they're not getting the energy flow they're supposed to get. And now all of a sudden I'm going, wait a minute, I think that this is giving the body information in abundance to send so much water down that stream that, in spite of that dam, the dam is still there, but now we got so much flow, it's going over the dam, around the dam, and it's getting to where it needs to get to once again, and things come online instantly.
This is a mind-blowing podcast. On one hand, I'm hearing an unbelievable breakthrough. This is just so incredibly beautiful. And I'm also hearing something that's absolutely terrifying, that malevolent people could potentially use this science to harm us.
Well, we're not going to go there right now, but I'll say this, that our visible spectrum of light is very narrow.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But if you put your arms out like this, you go, oh, there's a lot more there, right?
Yes.
And some said somewhere, we battle not flesh and blood, but other principalities, stuff that we don't see. Our light spectrum is very narrow compared to the information and stuff that's out there. And somebody shared this with me as they were educating me about this information. They said, Buzz, picture yourself in a theater, and the lights are down low. And what happens is the lights are so low, all I can see is, next to me there's Lucas, and next to me there's Dr. Rowen, and my whole existence is based upon all the information that I have is that which I can take in through my eyes right next to me. Well, then they said, now we're going to turn up the lights a little more. And, there's somebody in that row. And, we're in a theater now, right? I can see 3 rows in front of me, 3 rows behind me. So I have access to more information. With more information, I can make more decisions, right? And then we turn it up a little larger. And you go, there's an exit sign over there. I might be able to do something in a difficult situation to get out of here, to change the state. And then we turn the lights up all the way and you realize, whoa, on that wall is the theory of relativity. And over here's Einstein's this, and over here's, what could we do if we had access to all that information? And this is what's happening. We're just we're availing ourselves of more information. And something else that's interesting, that anomalous things that have happened. Did you see that field that's above the head right here? It's almost like part of one of my analogies, because I'll say this, it's as if supernatural things start happening also, that I can't quite explain, but it's almost like the antenna on our head is about that tall, of just receiving information that we might call intuition or things. When this field is enhanced, it seems to be enhanced in all directions, and it's like that 2-inch antenna might have gone up to 2 feet.
Yeah, I can see that. So if our field is broader, it can capture more that's coming through our field.
Correct. And so one of the things that from a physical, impact on the body, back to instant physical shifts, I'll say people who are subject or suffering from bioenergetic blockage or deficiency have an anomalously favorable instant response to those blockages or deficiencies being overcome. It's like you got a broken wire and all of a sudden go, oh, let's just fix that. Tie the wire, put some tape on it, and now the current's flowing. And now if I needed the current to move this arm, well, all of a sudden the arm starts working because it's getting the juice that it's getting what it needs. We've seen crazy anomalous things happen by just overcoming the deficiency. And we found that some people that say, well, will one bracelet do it? I don't know. Your body is given these resources and a directive to operate. So if we go back to the DNA thing, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. But
you are, but I'm loving it.
So what happens is we had from, I think I introduced you to exosomes years and years and years ago, which are phenomenal. But what we thought from the research in that space was that, the DNA sends information to the stem cell then performs and differentiates into different things. Like throughout our life, our skin, our body makes everything's turning over. We're always regenerating, new cells, new tissues. And however, but we still age, but we're a new person every 7 years. You probably heard that. Everything turns over, but we're still aging. How does that work? And our face, for example, has the ability to make 10 to 16 different types of collagen and elastin. It's really closer to 16, but let's just say 10. It makes 10 types of collagen and elastin. So the stem cell secrete, we're going to regenerate. Okay, it does this. And what they thought originally was that we had older stem cells, that the stem cell was, your stem cells are just getting old because they're not making 10 types of collagen and elastin. They're only making 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, right? Well, it turns out that your stem cells have the ability to make all 10 types your entire life. You know what it's not getting? It's not getting a message to make all 10 types. It's not getting the directive. The directive comes from the DNA, which has our programmed obsolescence. So old DNA is saying, tell the stem cells will only release 2 types of collagen and elastin. But what if your body, through some type of mechanism, was receiving the information to not make 4 types or 3 types or 2 types because of our age? What if it was receiving the information to make all 10 types again, like when we were younger? And what if that information can be delivered through a wearable that's in direct contact with your body, or through a waveform like an air machine, or through music, or what if the information, all that matters is that the information gets to us? And what if your stem cells receive that information and says, oh, I'm going to take this information and generate 10 types of collagen and elastin instead of 4 types of collagen and elastin? What might happen? Well, we're trying to figure that out, but interesting things are happening.
Well, I'm loving it. And at this point, I could talk with you for 10 more hours on this because I'm shell shocked. But we're 2 hours now, and we've got to think about that. And Lucas has to ask you some questions as well because he's always part of these. And I can see he's shocked. Lucas, you're on.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff seems pretty incredible, and we're most certainly going to have to get together afterwards to get a link in the description for our audience to access it and try that for themselves here. Um, my question to you is, so these life armor devices, what is their like structural makeup that is causing these? Like what's the root change here?
Well, essentially, what we're talking about is something that's really been around for a long time, and it's energy medicine. Energy medicine's been around in the East for thousands of years. It just doesn't exist. We're just not educated in the West. But acupuncture is actually a complementary alternative therapy, according to AMA. They know that it works. They don't know how it works, but they know that it works. And so, when you would put needles in somebody, what we're trying to do is we're trying to induce flow to overcome a bioenergetic blockage or deficiency through manually inducing that to happen. Well, what if we could wear something that just gave the body resources and we didn't have to wear the needles? I mean, I think that's basically what they found in Japan. How you don't get to 70% market penetration unless you've got something that's a massive paradigm shift that people already appreciate what the challenge is. Here in the States, we don't appreciate the challenges.
What is in here? What is it that's taken?
So,
and I know, I know you can't fully explain it. You might not even know, but how this is taking some type of energy information from the universe and providing it to our energy field. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Certainly. So again, I mentioned this earlier. All we have is one thing, and that's the mathematical formulation of information that matches thriving state DNA. And we have it for thriving humans, thriving pets, and thriving plants. We also have it for food preservation. But once they cracked the code and they identified the information, now it's how can we deliver the information to the body so the body receives the matching like kind information and then responds accordingly. So different forms. Remember, this started as music. So it can be delivered through sound waves. It can be delivered through photons, through light waves. It can be delivered through, and the information is invisible, by the way. I mean, how do you take? Of course. But you can take an entire orchestra and put it on a DVD. Well, there's all those people that are there, right, and all their skills. But now it's on a DVD, and somehow it plays, and then we get the benefit of that. So one of the things in the wearables, Lucas, is that over time that evolved because you can't walk around playing the music all the time. So it evolved to where they were able to take the information from the music and put it into something that we call a biocell, a life cell. And they were able to, through little pits and grooves, create a cell that will generate a resonance. So when your body's energy goes over it, it resonates larger. So it's almost like a bioamplifier. So when you wear these here at the heart, your heart's kind of like a megaphone. You're not speaking any louder, but it's being amplified. Okay. So think of when you wear, I'm wearing this, it's fashionable health optimizing accessories. Like you're going to wear stuff anyway. It might as well be optimizing, energizing, and protecting you. And nobody knows. So, but what that is doing is as my heart is putting out this energy field, which we all naturally have, it's being amplified. Okay. As my energy goes over that little bio disc, it's a piece of, it almost looks like a piece of confetti that has, resonant information programmed into it that resonates forward. So if you wear two and these things stack, so the more you have, the larger and more impenetrable that field becomes, the more bioenergetic resources your body has to overcome blockages and deficiencies. And so that's why I may wear, this and have the air machine going or, multiple things so that my field can be larger and I'm more protected from the environment. But basically, it's a bioamplifier that works through amplifying the resonance of my own body's biofield. So it's basically you amplified. It's you better. And there's one other component to this analogy of this megaphone. If I wear two things, the megaphone is bigger. So my heart's not working any harder, but that resonance is being amplified. But because we're also delivering the thriving state DNA information, it's like pitch correction because as a result of our aging DNA, our aging information, we don't want our aging information amplified. We want a younger, thriving version of us amplified. So it's like a bioamplifier with pitch correction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that actually helps clear it up a lot for me, and I appreciate the description there. I've got 100 questions and comments I'd love to ask, but unfortunately, I think that's going to lead us down rabbit holes that will keep us from posting these videos.
We
Unfortunately.
That's a concern. I see that we've been on here for about an hour and 50 minutes. I want to do this again. I think you
Sure.
do too, Lucas. Yes.
Yeah, definitely one of the more interesting conversations we've had.
Do you have any? Yeah, I'd like to keep going, but we can't. Do you have any closing questions, Lucas?
No, I'm good. I think we should definitely schedule another talk, though.
All right, we'll do it. I will talk to you about our needs, Buzz, and I'm really glad you cleared up a lot of issues for me. I'm going to make a brief summary of this for my Substack to try to get people to watch this whole thing because to me, this is absolute science. And it also, to me, provides the link between the material and the spiritual.
Yeah, if we had any more time, and we'll set this up for the next one. I used to be I have an interesting background. I was a professional rodeo cowboy. I was a bull rider, and I joke with people. They go, "Where'd you get? How did you learn? What's your background?" I said, "I was a bull rider." But my on our website on lifearmorlabs.com, I was approached by I saw my buddy, my trainer. He was my coach, 1970 world champ bull rider. I saw him a few years ago, and he just looked like he was aging and feeble and not doing well. And anyway, he calls me, and I because of this, I took my bracelet off. I'd seen him just briefly, and I put my bracelet on. I said, "It's our new company. We'll talk later." And I came home, and I learned that my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and all of a sudden that just took all of my attention trying to save her. And so about 8 months later, he says, "Buzz, you need to come up with some kind of an anti-aging product." And he said, "I'll be your spokesperson. Forget Chuck Norris." And I'm thinking, Gary, you're the last guy that would be an anti-aging, spokesperson for me if I came up with something. And so never told him about the tech. On our website, you're going to see this guy. He said, "Well, I'm going to send you a video." So he's 80 years old, and he's doing all these pull-ups, and he's doing all these push-ups. He's got a 34-year-old girlfriend, and she's 6 months pregnant, he just told me.
By him.
Everything righted itself. And on our website, you can actually pull that. He said, "Buzz, I want to do that age test. I want to have that test done that you did that showed your biologic age." So he's wearing, and so I'm watching this video of him doing these pull-ups, and I stopped the screen. I said, "Garrett," so I called him. I said, "What are you wearing on your wrist?" I said, he goes, "Well, on my watch." And he goes, "But on the other wrist," he goes, "Remember that bracelet you gave me?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I took that off. I wore it for about 2 weeks. I took it off, and I started feeling heavy. My body just felt older and heavy. It's like every old rodeo injury I ever had just crept back into my body." He said, "I noticed I didn't feel like that before, so I put on the bracelet." He goes, "I haven't taken it off a day since." So I said, "Gary, I don't need to come up with a product for you. I just need to tell you what you've been living." And so we ended up doing the before and after test. And so he'd been wearing the tech for about a year, three or four items. We test him. We do the exact same one that I showed his mom. We test him. He's 79 years old at the time. He takes the tech off, so there's some afterglow. His pre-biologic age was that of a 65-year-old. Okay, so he's 79, almost 80, but he tested as a 65 in the pre-test. And in the post-test, when he put his tech back on, we call it tech, when he put the technology back on, he tested at 53 years of age. And this is like to various degrees, every single person. It's just how the body operates when it's out of fight or flight. So when you're in fight or flight chronically, your hormones are off, everything's off, you're out of whack.
Absolutely true. Absolutely
true.
True.
And it's kind of like when you put on the tech, or you're when the tech is made available to your body, it's like your computer is running slow and it's bogged down because you got a bunch of apps running in the background, and it's like you just hit Control-Alt-Delete and all the apps are gone, and now you got more resources. And the way that it works with the body is it's like your body has a checklist, its own innate checklist. It says, someday when I've got more energy, I'm going to clean the garage, I'm going to take care of this, I'm going to work on my eyesight, I'm going to work on this. But it can't get there because it's constantly in fight or flight. And so when your body's able to get out of that state and stay out of that state, there's things that'll get it out of that state, but you just get hit back by your environment once again. So to be able to live and thrive in that state is really the breakthrough here. And when you're able to do that, things just tend to get better. Life gets better.
Buzz, I can't thank you enough. You really cleared up a lot of things for me. You made my thought process really expand from the material to the spiritual to even beyond. We're going to have you back on again, and we'll discuss it. And soon, Lucas, please get this up as soon as you can.
Yeah, this I think minimal editing. I should have this to you by give me 2 days to get it over to you.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks so much, Buzz.
Blessings to you and everybody watching. And thank you for all you do.
Thank you for being here with us.
Before we wrap up, I'd like to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors over at Simply 03. If you haven't checked out their latest innovation, glycine, now is the time. This premium ozonized glycerin is designed to boost immune function, improve blood flow, and reduce fatigue, all backed by over 2,500 medical studies on ozone therapy. Don't wait. Visit www.simply03.com/ozone to order glycine today. And if it's back ordered, just drop them your email and you'll get notified when the next batch is ready. Your health deserves the best, and with Simply 03 and glycine, you're on the right path. Start your wellness journey now at www.simply03.com/ozone. And before we go, a big thank you to our friends at Shop C60 for sponsoring this episode. If you haven't heard of C60, also known as Carbon 60, it is a powerful antioxidant designed to optimize mitochondrial function, fight inflammation, and neutralize toxic free radicals. I'm a huge fan of pairing C60 with a keto or intermittent fasting lifestyle to boost your immune system, support detox, and sharpen your mental clarity. If you're over 40, this could be the secret weapon to kick fatigue and brain fog to the curb. Head over to shopc60.com and use the coupon code in the description for 10% off your first order. Take control of your health and energy today. Visit shopc60.com now. Thank you for listening to this conversation with Dr. Rowen. If you found this podcast informative or inspirational, please share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, stay safe and be well.